Okay. Okay, you can still hear the overflow of discussion and passion from Hero. So, Hero, wrap up that question. Quo vadis, financially, economically, and that cannot be avoided, that it is also involved in the political issue of the Philippines in the world today.
Again, picking up from what Chito said, the institutions left behind by Spain, then the U.S., even after so-called Philippine independence, are still in place. Most particularly, we still have the Mutual Deference Treaty, which is a relic of the Cold War.
And earlier, you were saying that only now do Filipinos realize that there is a American enclave.
That has been there since time immemorial. Yeah. Okay, but that is part and parcel of this institution. No? Yes, that is part and parcel of this institutional framework that was put in place by the American colonizers. So you keep on going. Okay, that is your political, military. What about the financial? We have been tied to the US dollar as our reserve currency. Maraming dollar, okay, ang ekonomiya for the small portion of the country's elite. Walang dollar, bagsak ang ekonomiya. That has been part and parcel of Philippine economic policy. Medium-term economic program of every government put in place by the IMF World Bank Structural Adjustment Program. Open up your economy, forget about capital controls, etc. Things will work out by themselves. Let the market be. That has been the framework, starting with Garcia Macapagal.
Yeah. So do we stay the course?
Well, it has not been particularly good for the Philippine nation as a whole.
So without equivocation, we should change course.
Kulelat pa rin ang Pilipinas.
Okay. We must change course. Okay.
Kung kulelat ka,
bago tayo. Paano? Now we talk about leadership for the republic and for the people, not for the elite. They don't need leadership because they're very well led by the concept of profit. That's all. Wala na. But leading a leading a nation is a complex task of balancing the welfare of the people with special interest groups that are essential in the operation of a society, and then foreign relations. And we are stuck with the investigation of Vice President Binay. Not that it should not be done. There is probably the only political faction daring to dwell on the issue of the U.S. bases and this murder of the Filipino transgender. I don't know if I should even use that term. Is the Makabayan Coalition. Any other prospects of changing course? Because obviously, if we stick by the traditional political parties and politicians, we're not going to change anything. Chito, mahirap pa.
There are other forces. You have Miriam.
Okay.
You forgot.
That is a change of course.
And then you have
ballistic course.
People inside the Senate, sila surge. These are the people who voted against VFA. Pero minority. Okay? In terms of the current situation, I don't see a drastic change, of course. What will happen is, dahil sa kasong ito, it's very unusual.
Which kaso itong
The transgender case has managed to torpedo this VFA and EDCA course of action. No? So now there is a big need to defend it from the point of view of those who support it. But I think it exposes yung whole issue ng custody, sovereignty. So there is actually a problem there. And it affects public opinion.
Yeah, but
Kasi ang point nito is, ganito na lang ba tayo? So you have the demand now that at least renegotiate, if not abrogate, renegotiate, and then at least hindi matanggap ng Pinoy na second class pala tayo dito sa bayan natin. So the point I'm making is that I don't foresee a drastic change, of course, but I think people will think more of how to diversify, how to have more strategic options. Hanggang dito na lang ba tayo sa US and Japan? Or do we need to diversify so that in the long run, as other powers emerge, then we may take advantage of the situation? Hindi natin pwede ilipat ang bansa natin sa Amerika eh. Nandito tayo eh. Tapos, we don't have to go to bed with China. We don't have to be lovers or very close friends. But we have to be neighbors. And we have to be able to talk to each other and take advantage of where we can take advantage. Trade, if you notice, with China, has been compartmentalized to a certain degree. Hindi siya affected in an extremely negative way. In other words, hindi bumagsak. Tumuloy. It's just that hindi kasing lakas yung growth. Pero where there is mutual benefit, tuloy. Ang nahinto, aid and loans and bumagsak yung investment. Mas madami tayong investment sa China. Pero the point I'm making is that I think there is more space, more scope now for people to see that there is a need to balance yung ating foreign policy, to be more independent. Kasi na-imbalance eh. We basically made a choice.
We have to press the point, no? But the reality is, I observe in Japan, there are thousands of cases against American servicemen. You have hundreds of cases in South Korea, but the U.S. base is still there. Yeah.
And the U.S. doesn't change yung custody issue.
They will
won't
not.
yield.
Yeah.
It won't yield.
Because then they'll have thousands of servicemen in jail, di ba? So they cannot afford to change that. But it seems
they may make a bit of concessions. Yung mga, kumbaga sa konting moro-moro. No? Ngayon, nasa loob na ng kampo. Nasa loob na ng kampo.
So, they're an immovable rock. The U.S. Imperial presence, I would say, but maybe there's another term for it. But I propose that you cannot move the rock without some leverage. And the leverage is developing your relations with other powers.
With other powers.
We'll go to Chito to ask you to respond to that, and then we'll go to Hero. Chito.
Yun na nga ang pagkukulang natin. We limited our strategic options. Basically, we put all our eggs in one basket. No? The U.S.-Japan alliance. It looks brilliant right now kasi mas malakas yung alliance na yan ngayon sa balance of power. Pero after 10, 20 years, kung magbago yan, how sustainable is the American economy? And how guaranteed are we that this American hegemony will continue? So my point is you have to hedge. You have to diversify. You have to be ready for the medium and long term. It may serve you in the short term till 2016, for example. But beyond that, and particularly as we reach the next decade, I think we have to think of our long-term strategic interests.
Well, let's hear from Hero. Leadership for the Philippines in the coming years that may help change the course of the country.
Again, change in that dependency with the U.S. is difficult, basically based on the institutional...
Difficult but possible, or difficult?
Everything is possible.
Okay.
However, that institutional framework, look, our economy basically is controlled basically by U.S.-dominated multilateral institutions. They dictate. We have followed
How do we get out of it? That's a point.
The issue is, like Chito said, you have to start developing relationships with the other powers.
Okay.
Russia, China.
Who among our...
again, the institutional framework of our government was always U.S. bias. DFA.
Yeah. So now I'm trying to push it forward. No? Who among the leaders mentioned, for example, is Miriam Santiago? How is that going to change when she calls?
I didn't mean I support her.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying there are other forces.
She says the Chinese invented corruption. That's how can you now improve relations?
Chito has returned from a 2-week trip to Europe where the Europeans would like to learn about the Chinese system. They want to be educated. For generations, okay, the U.S. policy towards the Pacific Rim was basically anti-Com, anti-China. U.S. State Department were filled with bureaucrats that were drilled with that, okay? And it is taking time for them to readjust that position, okay? Because now they know, whoops, these guys got nukes. And they can fly these nukes with missiles, okay? So all of a sudden, they are rethinking. So it's a combination of constructive engagement or containment, one or the other. They're battling internally with that, but they're trying to learn. Yeah. The issue with the Middle East, they did not even have a single Arab speaker in the CIA. And your enemy are Arabs. So this type of thinking takes time when you have this empire institutions, basically, that you don't need to know anything because we know everything. This country is trapped in that type of culture.
What I'm trying to find is a way out of that trap. Okay, one is leverage, relating with, and I raised the question of, do we have...
we have no leverage.
Well, that's what we would like to have. One way is to try to relate with the others with certain gravitas.
To get strategic flexibility.
That's right.
And more options.
Perfect example. The BSP governor announces to the world, oh, we signed a new currency swap agreement with Japan to prevent a BOP crisis.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
That was part of the Chiang Mai initiative where China was a member. And he knows that he can't approach China for that because that was the attempt of the ASEAN and the North Asian countries to construct an Asian monetary fund during the 97 crisis, but the U.S. says, go to hell. Okay? That was the first attempt.
That's why we're in hell.
Okay? So now, again, we are still dependent because you have a BSP governor that knows, okay, we have this sufficient dollars, but it is not enough in case there is a major political economic crisis in the globe.
Well, you know, yeah, Chito, go ahead.
Basically, what's happening is that the world is changing from a unipolar to a multipolar world.
Correct.
So we have to adjust and adjust our links to the emerging powers and not just rely on the old alliance that we have. It will serve us for now, and that's why people have chosen it, or the leadership has chosen it. But what I'm saying is that the time will come. How sustainable is U.S. leadership? And then the rise of other powers. As they become more powerful, what do we do? For the strategic future of Asia, they usually speak of two possibilities. No? Continuation of Pax Americana, the American-led order, regional order that we have seen. But what if the U.S. economy cannot sustain it? Ultimately, it depends on the economic power. And the other possibility is if China's economic trajectory can continue and they become a dominant, preeminent power, then they speak of a Pax Sinica. But what we want is really not to be under a single hegemon. What we want is a balance of forces, so that then we could have more flexibility, more autonomy, and because of that, that is why it is necessary, I think, for us to broaden first our minds and to seek out, to broaden, diversify, basically.
Now, if we cannot confront this challenge head-on, then let's look at the other approaches to it. For example, if within the parameters of Philippine foreign policy, within it right now, the Philippines can push for example, global nuclear disarmament, because if you disarm, then a lot of resources will go to development and so on and so forth. In other words, I'm trying to look at it creatively. Maybe there are other approaches. Rather than siding with the other power centers, we raise the issue of common to all the power centers and the issue of peace and so on. Yeah, Chito.
Also, yung pag-strengthen ng relations with ASEAN. We're doing it already right now. Pero as usual, yung complaint ng ibang Asian countries, ba't hindi nyo naman kami sinabihan, mag-file pala kayo ng arbitration. Ang point is, we have to strengthen, we're now entering, actually next year, the ASEAN FTA, no?
Free trade.
And not only that, the integration.
So, where I feel we're dehado na naman lagi, no? Okay, that's another subject.
That's another subject. Pero, so that we can get benefits, aside from visa-free travel in ASEAN, so we can get economic benefits and strengthen it as an independent power, no? Right now, and to put it in central place. So there are other options available.
But when ASEAN makes a position or a non-position, which is a position being silent on the China Sea controversy, the Philippines also acts as a maverick. So we have this dilemma. We know that, but
ang basic. Well, the basic thing that we're doing, that the Philippines is doing right now, or the current administration doing right now, is basically strengthening relations with the U.S., Japan, and EU and Australia. No? Ang problema dun sa approach na yon is that it looks good in the meantime. Rule of law. My experience in talking to Europeans, no? When you speak about regional bullying and we're for arbitration and rule of law, it's an easy sell. But, ang ano lang nila, they don't want to offend China because they have strong economic and trade relations. Precisely. Okay? So this is the problem we're facing. In our case, we've basically chosen, okay, we're ready. No more, kahit na walang trade with China, we'll push through with it. We may have to go through this till 2016 until magkaroon ng decision sa arbitration. But after that, and even now, we should already start considering how do we continue engagement with all the powers, including China, and at the same time, hedging. What kung iwanan tayo ng kano? No? What kung lumakas ang China? What kung bumagsak ang US?
Well,
so to broaden our strategic options.
Chinese are also waiting for 2016 for a new leadership in the country that they can work with. You know? So, Hero.
Well, again, you say leadership and what change. I think change in this country will be glacial in speed. Glacial.
You're an optimist, huh?
I'm an optimist. I said glacial, okay?
I'm just joking.
It's generational. I mean, it could take 100 years. Who knows? Yeah. But unfortunately, you know, we have a lot of things to be thankful for. And that is precisely because of the ingenuity of the Filipino character. Colonized for 400 years, we learn from them and we learn to adapt. That's why we have our people all over the world that is keeping us above water. But what to do in the next 10, 20 years? Because, like Chito said, the world is changing and changing fast. This American hegemon has seen its best days. The Chinese, the Russians, India. India has serious internal problems. But now they're seeing the light because they have a leader who respects and adores the Chinese system. And he even invited the Chinese premier to his home state instead of New Delhi, Gujarat, where he is king.
Well, we have the last 60 seconds. You had a smile when he mentioned adores China from Modi. Any reaction to that?
I think Modi is playing a game. No? But this is exactly what we have to learn. And there are opportunities coming up. There's the APEC summit in Beijing in November. I know the President Aquino said he doesn't have a bilateral with Xi Jinping. But I think at least they should get to know each other.
Correct.
And then Xi Jinping will come here. We host APEC next year. So there are opportunities that could at least ease the tension as we start to rebuild the ties.
Okay. The tensions between India and China are far more serious than the Philippine-China issue. They are still doing battle up in the Himalayas.
Well, I am tempted at the conclusion of this discussion to propose Chito as the next Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Hero as the next Finance Secretary, and so on, and me as President of the Republic.
Exactly.
But we are people who want change, you know. It's just that we do not have the popularity nor the stomach for corruption which you need to rise in the power structure or compromise and so on. So that's the reality. No? So this,
it is the culture that
I got a thumbs up. So quick conclusion.
We don't have political parties in this country. Okay, it is personality based.
That's another subject.
And that is, let's forget about political parties.
Chito, as we exit, please, your words of wisdom.
It's just that we're dealing with a multipolar world, so we have to learn to play the game, a long game in this multipolar
diplomacy. Well, It's a short discussion on the long game. But we'll be back with you with Richard Daydarian very soon because he's preoccupied right now. Our Filipino-Iranian. We have a Filipino-Indian, we have Filipino-Chinese, and we have a Filipino. Okay, maraming salamat po and have a good weekend.
Unique.